happened to my TV?
They can see you. Can you see you?
Okay, I'm gonna get started in just a minute or so. Still hear people chiming in.
Unmute. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Rosso.
Hi,
Okay.
where are you joining from?
Bel Air High School, Houston, Texas.
Okay.
And I guess I landed here okay.
You're with us.
Okay, well, good. This is completely new for me. So, okay. I don't know if there's visual or if it's just that we see you. Is that how it works? Or
Can you see my screen?
I can see you over on the side. Yeah.
Okay, and then you'll be seeing my screen right here. Oops, I
This
got out of
tech
it
with
again.
heart using technology, that one.
Yeah, if you could go ahead and join, if you would like to interact with us.
Okay.
I'm about to begin, so if you would like to interact with us today, go to joinpd.com and go ahead and type in this code, and you'll be
Okay.
able to interact. If you would prefer to simply watch, that is fine also, but this will be interactive so that you can experience from the student end also.
Okay,
I'm gonna go
thank
ahead and mute everybody's mic again. If you do have a question, please use the sidebar chat. Danielle from the Pear Deck team is actually on the chat, and she'll be moderating that for us. And we will have some time for Q&A at the end of this. But let's go ahead and get started. So Danielle just left a little message in the chat. If you're having any problems getting into the actual Pear Deck, please go ahead and just look at the sidebar chat. And I'm gonna close that so I can just focus on presenting this to you right now. So Danielle, thank you for moderating the chat for us. All right, so hopefully everybody's in. And so I do want you to experience what Pear Deck is like. And I'm gonna start by kind of going through some of the, letting you experience it from the student end and then showing you how I use it from the teacher end. And I am going to be sharing a lot today about my experiences as an online AP Calculus teacher. And I know that many of you joining today are joining because you've been put in a situation where you need to teach remotely and you need this immediately. And I just want to start by saying that teaching an online AP Calculus class and this immediate crisis need of needing to teach in a virtual remote setting are two different things. I'm perfectly aware of that. I also have a face-to-face class and I've needed to put that remote now, and they're two different things. That's a big challenge for me too, even though I have all this experience teaching a purely online AP Calculus class. There's just different expectations and all of that. So I just wanna say that up front. And I will be just sharing some of the things that were successful in my online AP Calculus class to really hear from my students, interact with them, because that's a hugely important aspect, I think, of what we're all trying to do right now is make sure that those connections with our students are still really strong. That might be our most important role right now. So let's go ahead and move on. And so I'm going to kind of break this into a couple of different parts. Some of the benefits of using Pear Deck in your virtual session. So that's very much like what you're experiencing right now. I'm kind of the teacher controlling the Pear Deck for you as the student. Think of yourself as a student right now, and I am the teacher right now, kind of sharing this lesson with you. Then experience how Pear Deck feels and looks when used with Zoom. And we're gonna go back and forth between some interactive activities that you get to interact with me, and then some ways that I can kind of deliver some content to you, some navigation tips during your virtual lesson, and then also just ending by talking about how we can do some reflection and really promote that at the end. So I want to start by asking a question, and if you are on the Pear Deck, please go ahead and answer there. How much do you know about Pear Deck already? So as you can see here, all of these responses are coming in. I don't have names attached to it. That's one of the beauties of Pear Deck. I will say that a lot of my presentation today will be geared towards the I love it and I use it. So my original expectation was that a lot of people would have used Pear Deck already and been interested in really how to use it in the online setting. And so it will be geared towards a little bit of a more advanced user. If you don't know anything about it yet, hopefully you'll experience it, but I will let you know that some of what I talk about is a more advanced feature, so there are easier things to be able to do also, and we will share resources at the end to help you get started and all of that. But now that we did that little temperature check, let's go ahead and get into experiencing Pear Deck as a student, and you are going to be interacting with these slides. So, well, this first one you're not going to be, but typically when you are in the classroom, you're thinking about multiple different views. You're thinking about having the student view, you're thinking about having a projector view in front of you in the classroom, and then you're thinking about maybe having a teacher view too. And the teacher view, what I mean by that is Pear Deck has two ways of seeing things. What you're seeing right now is a projector view so that student names are not attached to it. But there's also another view that I can go back in later and I can see student names. So I can go in and I can go into a teacher dashboard, and then I would be able to see all the names attached to all the answers, and I could see what individual students need. However, we don't have a projector right now when we're in a remote environment. So you would just think about that as kind of whatever my screen share is. So the screen share option that we see in Zoom is going to be synonymous. So this is the screen share. If you're in Zoom, this would work in a Google Hangout or Google Hangout Meet. It would work in any type of video platform that you're sharing. You would have a screen share button at the bottom of your screen. And when you click it, you can just share your full screen, which is the easiest option to do. And then students would be able to see whatever is on your screen. So that's just how you kind of manage things. And I do want to start by showing you a little snippet of what my online AP Calculus class looked like. So this is how I ran. We had a once a week session where we met on Zoom actually, and I was able to interact with them there. Now, something that was really important to me was I was only getting to see my students once a week, which was such a valuable time to me. And I didn't want to just be there delivering content the entire time, because if I just wanted to deliver content, I could make a video for that. And so my biggest goal was really to be able to interact with students and hear and see how they were thinking. And so that is where Pear Deck has come in to play hugely for me. I can see students working in real time. Now, I do have to say that my online AP Calculus class, for them, we had these Wacom tablets, just these little tablets that students would plug in to their laptop that they already had, and that gave them the pen drawing tool within Pear Deck. I don't have that right now with my face-to-face class, so I won't be able to do the same level of interaction where you can see here that they're actually writing out their math work. But what was so amazing about being able to see them writing is that all comes in through Pear Deck in real time. So in real time, as they're writing, I can see how they're writing. I can see which ones are kind of still making the box and slow to start. They're confused about how to get started, and which ones are going along at a quicker pace. I can see how they're processing the material and how I might need to follow up with students individually, and also in a snapshot be able to assess class needs. And so I think that is one of the most powerful things about using Pear Deck along with your Zoom session. Students can all interact with you, even if you have a lot of kids on and you can't just hear them all talking at the same time. That can be difficult to manage. And so this has been a powerful way for me to preserve that, like, let me see your process, let me see your work. So I want you to just experience this with this little slide right here, where I'm asking you to just place those 3 dots that you see on your screen. So I'm going to show you what everybody's doing right now. And so go ahead and place your red dot on 2, 4, place your green dot on the 0.2, -4, and then place your blue dot on 2, 0. And I'll let you guys help each other out. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and say you guys have had, I still see a lot of people moving their dots around, but at this point I might say to my class, okay, great, let's bring our attention back to the board. And what I can do is I can lock the screens. And so right now, you can see that your screen is locked, and that would give me a chance to say to my class, all right, please turn your attention back to our Zoom so that they can look back at my screen and we can begin discussing responses here. Now, one thing is everything's stacked here, but there's multiple views in Pear Deck. So I can see individual students. I can see kind of like this. So I can see a breakdown of all different things. I can see one student at a time. I'm sorry, my session's going a little bit slow here. I think we have a lot of people on. I am not able to click between the screens. I'm gonna just give it one more second. There we go. So I can scroll student by student, just like this, if I want, so we can discuss one student, or I can do an overlaid view where everybody's on top of one another, and that can meet our needs depending on the question type. I'm gonna move to the next slide. So the drawing type slide is what I love more than anything. And so I am gonna let you use the drawing tools and just experience that from the student end to see what it feels like to be able to draw on your screen. So go ahead and draw what you think the graph of x = 2 looks like, if you know what the graph of x = 2 looks like. If you don't, maybe think back to what I just asked you to do with placing the dots. It might give you a clue. Okay, this is very delayed, so I'm gonna just keep moving on. I'm not sure what's happening. Okay. I think that my screen has gotten drawn off of. There we go. So hopefully I'm back here. So this image captures a couple of interactions that we typically see in the classroom. So I would say that this first one kind of is that student who is working independently through her work. And with Pear Deck, we're really providing that opportunity for that student to work individually. Then we see this interaction between the teacher and the student. And in Pear Deck, we can continuously be embedding those learning checks and temperature checks into our lesson so that we can keep that interaction, that student to teacher interaction alive, even if we are in a remote setting. And that's what I hope to be really showing you today. And then there's that peer-to-peer interaction, which can be so difficult to preserve in a remote environment. But I hope that by modeling how we can show responses, student responses, actual student work, and we can unmute their mic. I can't unmute your mic right now because we have too many people in here. But by doing that, we can allow students to still teach one another, learn from one another. And again, I think that's just one of the most important things that we can be doing right now, is to allow those opportunities for students to interact as they are home and not able to see their classmates on a daily basis. How do we provide these opportunities for them to talk? In my online class, in my face-to-face class, we just started our remote learning days. And when we got on, it was just like everybody was so excited to just say hi to one another and see one another on the chat, even though it was through a video. And so how do we keep those conversations alive? I think that Pear Deck can be a huge solution there. So when I say let's get started with the basics, that is what you've been experiencing right now. So that really is me creating this Pear Deck lesson where I embed the questions within. Let me just show you really quickly, because I know some people are not familiar with Pear Deck. So what it is you just create in your Google Slides, you create the Google Slides presentation, and then there's this little sidebar here, which is an add-on that you can get and add it into your Google Slides. And then you just add different question types. So, you know, when I wanted, these are normal slides, but when I wanted to ask you a question, you just get this little bottom bar. I got that by selecting it when I wanted it to be a draggable type question. And then students are able to interact. And then you just press this present button and boom, it's a Pear Deck that students can interact with. So that's kind of what it looks like on the creation side. So again, when you are just getting started, I would just share this type of a Pear Deck, allow students to respond. You're really just sharing your screen as a teacher, and you're going back and forth between showing student responses and asking the question so that you can keep the conversation on what students are saying. Now, let me just go back to what I was saying. So hopefully one of these will work. All right. When you're showing the responses, I think it's so important to remember to pull the attention back to student responses. So not just, all right, guys, here's the right answer, and to show your response as the teacher, but to allow students to experience what their peers are saying, to talk about the answers that were correct, and to also talk about the answers that were incorrect, and to dive into why it might be correct or incorrect, and let them analyze that. So I would just pull up the individual and we would talk about maybe this question. So, and then open it up to the class, allow them to chime in and actually talk also with their mic about what they think about this answer, instead of me just presenting my work all the time, which tends to be what you do if you just create a Google Slides presentation. That's totally teacher created. So I am going to dig into now the next level of things. And this is pretty much how I run my class. And so what I do is, and I have a second device right here. I am just logging in with my iPad right here. And so I'm logged in here as a student. On the computer that you're seeing right now, the screen share that you're seeing, all of this is me logged in as a teacher on Pear Deck. I can be logged in as a teacher and a student at the same time with my same account. And what that allows me to do is this. Okay, now I'm not expecting you to answer this question, but this is just, I want to be real. This is what we do in AP Calculus, and this just came from a recent lesson that we were doing. I would create some slides instructional. This would be an instructional type slide for me, for my students. And then I would follow up with some questions that I want students to respond and interact with me. Now, if you look at your Pear Deck, you'll see that you have all the drawing tools, because what I'm basically doing is I'm seeing the same thing you guys are seeing right now. But what I use this for is I use it as an instructional slide. And let me just show the responses. That's all I do is I show the responses. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find just my answer. If for this one, if you could not write on the screen, that would be helpful. Let's see, where am I? I should have said that at the beginning. Okay, there's me. Okay, this is me. So I would just be presenting to students and I would say, okay, I want to give a little bit of instruction. And because I'm logged in as a student, you can see that when, hopefully you can see my screen, both screens. So you can see that as I'm writing here, it's coming up on this screen that you guys are seeing. I don't need to mirror my iPad onto my computer screen, and that's pretty magical. I can be showing whatever I'm writing here is going to pull up here. I can show students what I'm doing. I can point things out. I can draw anywhere on my screen, and this is a way to ink up any Google Slides presentation that you have. And so again, what I've done is I've logged in as a student on here. This is my student. And then on the computer screen that you're seeing in front of you, I'm logged in as a teacher. And then I can do some instruction. This slide would be instructional. I would tell my students, please pay attention just to the screen at this point. And then I would move to the next question. Now, this is unrelated. However, this was, again, from just yesterday, what we did in AP Calculus class. We were supposed to play Jeopardy in class. We didn't quite get to do the whole team aspect and the point aspect, but all my students were logged into the Pear Deck. And what we did was I gave them a handout with all these questions on it. So they were doing their work on their handout on paper. And then I asked them to circle their response on this Pear Deck. So what they could do then is circle their response. So if we have any math teachers in here, please help us out. So if you guys could try, erase whatever writing you've done and try and just circle the response that you think is right. That's all I want you to do. Just circle the response that you think is right. Just so you can kind of experience what this would kind of be like. Great, okay, I got enough. So, oh, got too many now. It was good like 1 second ago. But anyway, you would be able to see, let me pull you to an example. This is what my AP Calculus class looked like the other day. And so you can see that everybody got consensus on D. It was just a way for us to kind of stack all those answers on top of one another. I could see if students were on board with me or if we needed something else. However, I will say what was really great was during this, there was a different question where everybody in the class circled B except one student circled E. And then as soon as I showed the responses on the screen, so if we were back here and say I told you guys right now, okay, the answer is B. Everybody's gonna start changing their answer to B. And that's what this student the lone student who had gotten E did. They followed their classmates. They were the only one that was right. So it was a great teachable moment, and the power of peer pressure is real. So I just want to show you if everybody could erase their responses real quickly so I can show you one other thing. Thank you. Okay, so what I would do is I would show the responses like I'm showing right now, and then as me, the teacher, after I show the responses of the students so that we're able to talk it out, I might need to give a little bit more instruction for students here so that they can really follow along with whatever we're talking about. So we would be talking about the students' answers. However, I would also then write at the bottom and just be able to do that right here and say, okay, this was the question we had. Okay, and so you can see that this is all coming up on the same screen there, and you're able to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so that I can just give some more visual cues for the student to be able to follow along with whatever we're doing. But we're still talking about the student's work. In this example, this was exactly what happened. So I'm just mimicking what I did in class, where this was me writing down here, but it was after all students had a chance to respond and tell me what they were thinking. This was another example from yesterday's class. So let me just show you. This was actually our Pear Deck session. And so this is what the question was like. And I could look at overlaid view. We could go kind of student by student. We could look at all of them, and we could compare all the answers and talk about what different people used as their process. And that was really nice for this one. It was really interesting to me that so many students split up their figure into like the same type of shape of how they were counting up the boxes. But just little things like that they can do with their mouse. So even if you don't have, you know, a fancy tablet or anything like that, I was able to see how they were thinking about counting up the number of, or the area under this curve. So like the number of boxes, think they were just counting them. And it was interesting to see how everybody was counting them differently. All right, let's see. Let's do a quick little temperature check. How are you guys feeling right now? Am I going too fast? A little confused but keep going? Or do we need to take a pause? Okay, it looks like most people are like, let's keep going. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna get to these questions. We will definitely have time for Q&A soon. So I will just keep going for now. Now, just so you know, these little temperature checks are built into Pear Deck already. So I use that all the time. I go ahead and I just use like these little during the lesson slides, and then you can kind of just click on it simply like that. And the awesome Pear Deck team has already illustrated these things so they look nice for us. And we can just add them into our lesson. And if we want, you can change any of this text. You can really change any of these texts. It's all editable, all customizable for what you need. The illustrations are there for you. Anything can be changed on the slide. The only thing you need is to keep this. As long as you keep this on your slide, you can change everything else, and it's still a draggable dot type of slide. I love the illustrations, as you can tell from my presentation here. All right, so I do want to get into, as I said, for closing, I do want to talk about how you're kind of embedding reflection into the Pear Deck that you're building. Ending your lessons in this way is just such a powerful way to get insight into, you think you know what you're delivering as the teacher, you think you know what students are seeing from you, but sometimes when I ask students to do these reflection type questions, I get such powerful insight into what they have seen me do. And that's not always equivalent to what I think they are seeing me do. So I really enjoy ending my class with some of the questions that are already in Pear Deck. So they have ones like pretend your friend was absent today, circle how you're feeling, reflect on today's activity, and it breaks it into 4 quadrants, draw or type 2 things you learned in today's lesson. And those are already built in, and you can adjust them, of course, as you need. But that allows you an opportunity to have students kind of summarize their knowledge at the end of the lesson. All right. I think my screen was being drawn on. Next. Now, I do want to show these student takeaways, which are very, very powerful. Now, this is only available if you are having all students sign in with a Google account. So Pear Deck is available for both PowerPoint and for Google, and also as you guys signed on today, you signed on anonymously. Those are all options. However, if you have all students sign in with a Google account, then it will automatically generate takeaways at the end of the session. And what these takeaways are is a Google Doc. So you're seeing that on your screen right now. If you go over to your Pear Deck, you'll see the actual Google Doc, or you can just follow along on my screen. But what this is it's a Google Doc. Each student individually gets their own Google Doc. And on the left side is my slide that I had created as a teacher. On the right side is the response that the student had submitted. So each student will get their own Google Doc with their own answers in it, and that Google Doc is automatically generated, automatically shared with both the student and myself, so that I can go back in to see the student's work, or the student can go back in, write reflections, which is what I did for this activity. I asked students to summarize their knowledge and to put little reminders at the end for takeaways. And then I can see their work by going in there, and then I can just use the comment feature in Google Docs, which is a great way to interact with my students. In addition, what I do and what you're seeing over in this screenshot over here is those are my answers. Those are what I have written during the lesson, because remember, I'm logged in on my iPad as a student. And so when I publish the takeaways, I also get the takeaway because Pear Deck thinks I'm a student and a teacher at the same time. And when I publish that, I can post that for students as an answer key after the fact. And that can be really helpful for students who kind of process better when they're looking at my written work than following me along in a video. Again, it's a way to provide different resources for different students who process differently. It's also great for absent students, which is what I'm going to get into next. And I do want to talk about, what about a student who misses this virtual meeting, as we're maybe doing some remote classes and allowing students to join us through a Google Hangout or through a Zoom meeting, whatever your school has set up, or maybe you're offering office hours. And I do just want to mention here that, in my online class, it was a requirement to watch the video if you missed the class, because it was part of the class. But right now, we don't know what's going on with a student if they are missing class. Maybe they're sick, maybe a family member is ill. There's so much going on in the world right now. So while I give this suggestion for something that you can do, we all just have to be caring and sensitive and know our students and know what assignment we should be or should not be giving for makeup work. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. Again, this is what I did in my online class. I kind of would just post both the videos. So I would record my online session, and I would also provide the actual Pear Deck that we had done. And so students would be able to fill that out after class. So when I publish those takeaways that I was just talking about, there's always going to be a blank takeaway that's generated for you as the teacher. So it has, if I go back to this, it has the left-hand side, all the questions, but the right side remains blank. So you'll see that when you publish takeaways in your Google Drive folder, you'll find a blank one always there for you. And so I would share that with my students who were absent, and then they could just fill out that takeaway after class. They could handwrite it and then turn it in to me, take pictures of it and send it to me if it needs to be done virtually. And then that is why that reflection question is so powerful, because I can really see what students are taking away from it, if they've watched the video, if they've comprehended the video well, and also just to allow them to follow along with the video and write. I think there's real power in them writing as they're watching. It's less of a passive experience than just watching the video. As well, this right here, this assignment that you're seeing is actually, I was not at school one day and I needed to send in absence plans. And so what I did was I recorded a video of me doing the Pear Deck. I went through the whole Pear Deck as a teacher, and I did the same process that you've been seeing me do right now. And then I opened a self-paced Pear Deck. So right now you've been watching me do a Pear Deck where we're all doing it in sync, but there's also this, sorry, I called it self-paced. It's student-paced. I can turn on student-paced, and that would allow students to go at their own pace, and they could do it asynchronously on their own. And so I had them then just fill out the actual Pear Deck, follow along. And this is when they were in the classroom and they had those little tablets so they could actually draw on the screen. And I could watch them if I'm at a conference, I could watch them in real time, kind of in class. It's a great way to interact with them. So those are just some suggestions for things that you can do. This can be great if you're absent today, or again, if you need to teach virtually. So I just want to ask a couple of questions to kind of end. I want to ask this question, then I want to ask a reflection question, and then we are going to get into just some Q&As. So I'm interested to see how you think you might leverage Pear Deck to engage all students in your virtual class meetings and some of the benefits you think. And then I can show some of the responses from what you guys are saying so that we can share. All right. Just scroll through some of these ideas so you guys can see what other people are saying. And then we'll get into some of the questions in the chat. I do think it's really important. I'm obviously not going to go through all the answers here, but I do think it's really important when you're using Pear Deck to give enough time to go through the responses and to go through what different students are thinking. It's easy to just go very quickly and to be like, okay, let's get on to the next slide. But I think it's important for everybody to be able to see what other people are sharing, especially in the classroom. I'm just going to show one more screen of responses and then move to the next. All right, so this last question is just to give you a moment to take note of some key things that you'll take away. And I'm really interested to know if there's anything that you will implement immediately, if there's something that sparked an idea, and if there's something that you like, but maybe you need to tweak a little bit to work in your setting. Okay, I'm just gonna give about 30 more seconds. And one thing I didn't show, why don't we just do that right now, is, you know, if you do need to kind of time things in class and kind of keep the pace going, you can turn on this little timer. So you can see here, I'm gonna give you guys 30 more seconds to answer this question. And that's a way to kind of keep the flow going sometimes during a warm up. I really don't like timed things, but sometimes, you know, you got to keep the pace of class going, and my students get used to having that little timer to let them know that we're going to bring it back to the board in just 30 seconds, but I give them that 30 more seconds to kind of finish up what they're doing so that they're ready for it. Okay. So now we're going to get into just some Q&As. I'm going to toggle back and forth, but on your screen right now, you should see a link to a website. Pear Deck wants to help schools keep students connected to their learning environment. And so to any schools who are affected right now, who are in a remote learning situation, Pear Deck is offering a lot of free resources and also free premium upgrade. And so you'll find the links on that page there, or you can go to peardeck.com/stay-connected later to be able to find all of these resources. You can also find Pear Deck on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. And we're going to go into some Q&As. We'll get to the chat right now also. And I'd love to stay connected with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My blog is techiemusings.com. On Twitter, if you're on Twitter, that's the best way to connect. I'm at BuddyXO. Again, I got my little guy here. This is Buddy. He's going to say hi to you. He's been sleeping through this whole webinar. And this is Buddy. He's the inspiration behind my Twitter handle. I love him very much. And that's really all I've got for you guys, but I'm going to be answering, I see a ton of questions coming in, so we will definitely get to those right now. All right, so keep the chat going. I'm going to pull up the chat window on the side. And I saw a lot of people asking things about student-paced mode. All you would do is you would click these three dots here, you would turn on student-paced mode, and then you can just give students this link right here, and you can put that into your learning management system, however you communicate with students, and then they're able to go at their own pace through this. If you need to then go over it in the classroom, you can turn student-paced mode on and off. So I can go on, I can go off, but every time I go on, I will get that link generated. Somebody also asked, do I have to start a session in order to get student-paced mode? Yes, you need to start a session. Now, if you had 3 different blocks of students and you wanted them to be able to each get into their own one, you wanted to separate by block, you can just start this session, leave it opened, go back to your slides, present again, start a new session, generate that, so you can have multiple sessions going at the same time. Somebody else asked a question about the takeaways. Once you publish them, so once you end the session and you publish the takeaways, that's going to generate the takeaways for that day. If you reopen the session, you won't be able to generate those takeaways again. So my suggestion really is to keep the session opened until everybody is done and then publish the takeaways. If you needed to kind of have some absent students make it up, I would just publish the takeaways and launch a new session for the students who were absent. That would be my way of doing it. If you have a 3-day assignment that's really the same deck, I would split it into 3 decks so that you can publish the takeaways each day. Or like in my case of Jeopardy, I just waited. It was a multi-day game, and I just waited until we finished it to publish the takeaways. All right. So let's get to some questions here. Can I see a mosaic view of the answers? Yes, the answers, the dashboard would be the same as what you're seeing here. I have all the same controls. I'm gonna actually show you right now because I didn't ask for your names. So I'm gonna just open the dashboard in a new window so you can see what that looks like. Yes, and there's some great suggestions here. You can skim through responses ahead of time. You can star some of them so that those are the only ones that you're pulling up on the projector to discuss. I'm seeing some great suggestions in the chat here. Can you modify the slides that are created? So you can modify them only when you're in the Google Slides. You would have to relaunch the presentation if you wanted to kind of show those edits. It's not synced. So here is the one with the, this is a teacher view. So this has actual names attached. I had you guys join anonymously so that you could join from any device, whether you have a Google or a Microsoft account. But if you had everybody sign in with their Google account or everybody sign in with their Office 365 account, then you would see the actual student names, and you can see that the same controls are here. I can do list, I can do that grid layout, and if it's you know, the drawing type, I would be able to get the overlaid view. Yes, you can draw with the Chromebooks. That's great. How do I incorporate an equation editor? I just use Equatio usually, and so that's just Equatio. Equatio is a add-on that allows you to, and it's free for teachers, and it allows you to add equations to any Google Slides, but you do just need to fill out the form to get access as a teacher. So that is the way that I do that. I think that was that. I hope I answered the question about doing it with different periods. Okay, let me see the more recent questions coming in.
For different periods, you're saying just launch a different session for each period?
I couldn't hear that question. It was breaking up.
When you're talking about switching periods, what's your suggestion to launch a different session period?
Yeah, so you would, let me just go to peardeck.com right now so you can see how it works. So when you go to peardeck.com, that's where you can find all of the sessions that you have launched. So, okay, I start by just really living in my slides. Create everything in here, add all the interactivity, press present lesson. When I need to go back to a lesson, or if I need to manage multiple sessions that were open, I go to peardeck.com, I go to the teacher login. That's where it saves all of the sessions. You can see the session tab right here, and I can see all of my active sessions. So this is a session we are doing right now. So even if I closed out of it, I could click back on the projector view, or after class, I can go to the dashboard view and open it up. But I can have multiple sessions open right now at the same time. So you can see that I've closed some of them and some of them are still open, but this is how you can access them. If you need to reopen any of them, that's available here. So this one I hadn't ended yet. When I end it, then it would close and I can share the takeaways. I guess I have a lot of them opened. Sometimes I forget to close them. Does that make sense? Hopefully. And then I would just label the sessions. Like you can go in here and you can name the session. So I could name the session like B block, and then my next session, I can go in here and I can rename the session D block, and so forth. And yeah, I have been talking about launching it through just Google Slides because I use Google myself, but you can also do it through Microsoft, through PowerPoint online. Are there any other major questions, Danielle, that have been repeated in the chat?
I think some of the big questions that we've seen are on student paced mode and session responses being saved in your app home. So maybe you can go to the home screen and just check out all of those session responses are saved and will be continued to save for as long as you have your Pear Deck account.
Great, yes. So again, you just go to your Pear Deck, go to peardeck.com, it'll bring you here. So if you go down to your home, here are you can just present from your drive right there. You can also find some learning things. You could start your session here. I always go to the sessions tab, and then I can find all of the sessions that I've had. And again, as Danielle just said, all of the answers are always saved in here. I can choose the projector view if I want to launch it again in the classroom view, or I usually go back after class and use the teacher dashboard view to see what individual students have said. How you can star the slides. You go in to the teacher. Come on. All right, so here we go. So you can see that if you're in the teacher dashboard, you can star certain answers, just like that. And that would allow you to star right there. If there was any inappropriate responses, you can also click on the three dots and hide that response if you don't want it shown on the projector. So that would be when we get back to this projector view. You wouldn't be able to see any of those ones that you hid. Hopefully that answers that question. So see, right now, because I only starred those three, those are the three that I'm seeing. Add one more. I don't know what's happening. There we go. It's just delayed. There we go. When you mirror your screen, are you mirroring the projector mode? Yes, I'm really just showing you the projector mode usually during my Zoom session. I'm just doing a screen share with just the projector or that classroom view opened. Would you suggest student paced and video for students, then give remote Zoom discussion